September 6, 1997, Diana's funeral day. While the world mourned a princess behind the walls of Kensington Palace, a drama was unfolding that no one knew about. Prince Charles heard something behind his mother's office door that would change the rest of his life. Queen Elizabeth's fury-filled scream echoed through the corridors. "You killed her, Charles! And now you're going to stand there and cry?" But the real question was Charles truly sorry? Or was this just a performance? 10:15 a.m. Kensington Palace. Prince Charles stood in front of the mirror in his private chambers. His black suit was impeccably pressed. His black tie was perfectly knotted, but he barely had the strength to hold the phone in his hand. Camilla's voice echoed through the receiver. "Charles, are you ready?" Camilla said. Her voice sounded like a director giving instructions to an actor. "Remember, you need to cry in front of the public today. The cameras will record your every moment. People expect you to be upset." Charles pulled the phone away from his ear and looked at the screen. Camilla's name glowed there. For this woman? Had he sacrificed everything for this woman who caused him to lose Diana? "Charles, can you hear me?" Camilla's voice sharpened. "Charles!" He hung up the phone. He looked in the mirror. The man staring back at him wasn't familiar. He was 49 years old, but looked 70. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He hadn't slept properly in 6 days. Every night, he saw Diana's face. Not just in sleep, but when he was awake too. "What have I done?" he whispered to the mirror. It didn't answer him, but he knew. He'd known for 15 years, really, that he had lost Diana. Not that he didn't love her. No, it was more complicated than that. He'd realized that he had never learned how to love her. And now, on the morning Diana was about to be taken to Westminster Abbey in a cold coffin, Charles truly felt it for the first time. The terrible, crushing, irreversible loss. His knees trembled. He grabbed the arm of the chair but lost his balance. He fell to the floor, on his knees. The prince of the royal family, the future king of England, was crying on his knees on the carpet. "What have I done?" he said again, louder this time. "What have I done to Diana?" The tears came now. He couldn't control them. Everything he'd held in for 15 years, every suppressed emotion, every regret, all exploded at once. There was a knock at his door. "Sir?" His private secretary, Stephen Lamport's voice came through. "Are you ready? The cars leave in 20 minutes. Charles quickly got to his feet, wiping his eyes. "1 minute!" he shouted, his voice cracking. He looked in the mirror again. His eyes were bright red. His face was swollen. He couldn't look like this. The public couldn't see this. But maybe they should. Maybe everyone should see who Charles really was, the man who destroyed Diana. 14 years earlier, in 1983, Charles and Diana sat in their private sitting room at Kensington Palace. Diana was pregnant with William. Her face was glowing. She was happy. "Charles," Diana had said, placing her hand on her stomach. "The baby kicked. Do you want to feel?" Charles hadn't looked up from his newspaper. "Later, Diana. I need to finish this article." The light in Diana's face had dimmed. She'd slowly pulled her hand back. That moment. Charles remembered that moment now. The disappointment on Diana's face. And him. He'd continued reading the newspaper, as if nothing had happened. There were so many moments like that. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. Charles left his room. As he walked down the corridor, he felt the palace staff watching him. They were judging him. Everyone knew. Everyone knew how Charles had treated Diana. He walked toward the main hall of Buckingham Palace. He needed to see his mother, Queen Elizabeth, for the final protocol meeting before the funeral. When he reached the Queen's private office door, he stopped. Voices were coming from inside. His mother was talking to someone. Charles approached the door. "Today must be perfect," Queen Elizabeth was saying, her voice cold and precise. "No mistakes will be accepted. The public has turned Diana into a saint. We need to maintain that image." "Your Majesty's orders will be carried out," Sir Robert Fellows, the Queen's private secretary, replied. "Charles is expected to be emotional today," the Queen said, "but in a controlled manner. He mustn't cause any scandal. He should stand with William and Harry but not appear too close." Charles couldn't take it anymore. He pushed the door open and entered. Queen Elizabeth turned and looked at her son. There was no emotion on her face. "Charles," she said in a cold voice, "you're on time." "Mother," Charles said, his voice trembling, "this is her funeral. Diana's funeral. How can you talk like this?" The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Sir Robert, would you leave us alone?" Sir Robert quickly left the room and closed the door. The Queen turned to her son. "How dare you speak to me that way, Charles?" "Diana is dead," Charles's voice rose. "Don't you understand? She's dead, and You what, Charles?" The Queen's voice was ice. "What did you do?" Charles staggered forward. I killed her." Silence. Queen Elizabeth stared at her son. Her face was stone. "Yes," she finally said. "You did." Charles looked up, shocked. "You killed her, Charles," the Queen continued, her voice now filled with rage. "For 15 years you neglected her, you cheated on her, you humiliated her, you were never a real husband to her, and now she's in a coffin and you're going to cry?" "Mother, Shut up!" The Queen's scream was terrifying. Perhaps Charles had never seen his mother this angry in his entire life. "That girl loved you," the Queen said, her voice shaking. "Foolishly, desperately, in a way you never deserved. And what did you do? You ran to Camilla. You sacrificed everything for that woman. The crown, your sons, Diana." Tears were streaming down Charles's face now. "I know," he whispered. "I know." "No, you don't," the Queen said. "Because if you knew, you would have changed things 15 years ago. But you didn't. And now it's too late." The Queen returned to her desk and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you," she said, extending the envelope to Charles. Diana left it. She gave it to her lawyer a week before the crash. She said, "If something happens to me, give this to Charles." Charles's hand trembled as he took the envelope. On it, in Diana's handwriting, was written, "To Charles, before it's too late." "Open it," the Queen said. Charles opened the envelope. Inside was a single page. In Diana's handwriting, Charles. "If you're reading this, I'm probably no longer here. I know it sounds dramatic, but the things happening in recent weeks are frightening me. You think I'm angry at you, but I'm not. Not anymore. I'm just sad. I'm sad because you could never learn to love me. I'm sad because trying to love you destroyed my life. And I'm most sad because our sons are paying the price. Take care of William and Harry, Charles. Don't treat them the way you treated me. Show them that the royal family can love. And be happy with Camilla. Really, she was your choice. I hope it was worth it. Goodbye, Diana." When Charles finished reading the letter, he collapsed to the floor. On his knees, in front of his mother, sobbing like a child. Queen Elizabeth looked at her son. There was no compassion on her face, only disappointment. "Get up," she said in a cold voice. There's time for crying, but not now. Now we have a funeral, and you're the king's son. Act like it." In the corridor, 67-year-old maid Margaret Thompson stood outside the Queen's office door. She held clean towels in her hands but couldn't move. She had heard everything. The Queen's screaming, Charles's crying, Diana's letter. Her heart was racing. Margaret had served the royal family for 42 years. She knew thousands of secrets. But this was different. She quickly walked away down the corridor. No one had seen her there, or so she hoped. 11 o'clock. The funeral ceremony began. 2,000 guests sat inside Westminster Abbey. Outside, millions watched. On television, 2.5 billion people followed the live broadcast. Charles walked beside William and Harry. 15-year-old William and 12-year-old Harry walked behind their mother's coffin. Their faces were like stone. No tears, just shock. Charles didn't want to look at them, because every time he did, he saw Diana. William's blue eyes were Diana's. Harry's red hair was Diana's, and both of them were looking at Charles, with accusing, silent stares. Elton John sang "Candle in the Wind." Tears began streaming down Charles's face. He couldn't control it anymore. Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, stepped up to the podium and spoke. And every word he said pierced Charles. "I speak as someone who knocked on Diana's door when I needed her, and she was always there. For everyone. But who was there for her? Who protected Diana?" The words echoed through the hall. Who protected Diana? Charles knew the answer. No one, and especially not him. The funeral ended. The coffin was lifted. Charles, William, and Harry walked behind it. As Charles passed the coffin, he paused for a moment. He bent down. He rested his forehead on the cold wood of the coffin. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Diana." But Diana couldn't hear any more. 11:30 p.m. Charles returned to his Highgrove home. He was alone. Camilla had called, but Charles hadn't answered. He entered the living room. Wedding photos of him and Diana stood on the mantelpiece. They were smiling, or Diana was smiling. Charles was just standing there. He sat at his desk and pulled out a piece of paper. He picked up a pen. He began to write. "William and Harry, what can I tell you? Apologizing isn't enough, but I must apologize. I didn't treat your mother the way she deserved. I didn't love her. At least I didn't show it. And now she's gone. And you witnessed it? I promise you, I won't make the same mistakes with you. I will love you. I will be a good father to you. I can never bring your mother back, but I promise to keep her memory alive." Father Charles folded the letter, but didn't send it. He couldn't send it. Not yet. But one day he would. One day he would tell his sons everything, and maybe, just maybe, he would be forgiven. But tonight, on Diana's funeral night, Charles was alone, with his regrets, his mistakes, and the ghost of the woman he could never bring back. 27 years later, in 2024, Margaret Thompson, 94 years old, lay on her deathbed. Her niece Sarah sat beside her. "Sarah," Margaret said in a weak voice, "I need to tell you something. Something I've kept hidden for 27 years. "What is it, Aunt Margaret?" "On Diana's funeral day, I heard something. A conversation between the Queen and Charles. And that conversation, it explains everything." Sarah leaned forward. "What did you hear?" Margaret told her about that day. Every word, the Queen's rage, Charles's tears, Diana's letter. "My God," Sarah whispered. "No one should know," Margaret said. "But at the same time, maybe everyone should." Maybe people should understand what really happened to Diana, not just the crash, but the years that led her there. Margaret closed her eyes, and that night, she died. But her story didn't. Sarah wrote down what her aunt had told her, and in 2024, she published it. The world was shocked. But Charles? Charles was now 76 years old and had become king. When he heard the news, he was sitting in his room at Highgrove. He looked at Diana's picture. It was still on the mantelpiece. "They know now," he whispered. "Everyone knows, and they're right. I caused your death, Diana." But Diana's picture kept smiling. Silent, forgiving, eternal. And Charles, for the first time in 27 years, smiled slightly. Because finally, everyone knew the truth. And that, strangely, set him free.